Well, happy Thursday morning. I'm with Steve Davis of the Kamar Group and Charlie Belfontaine, one of the best home inspectors in the state of Illinois.
Self-proclaimed.
Yeah, self-proclaimed. A ton of Zillow 5-star reviews. And do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, Charlie?
Sure. I live in Wilmette, Illinois, and I started in the home inspection business in 1993. And then we started getting into training home inspectors in 2001 when the state got licensed. I was also a fireman for about 37 years. I retired 6 years ago. And once I retired, I asked my wife if she was cool with me building the business up. So since 2018 to now, 2024, we went from just me doing inspections up to we have a dozen home inspectors now, and everybody has the same passion to help people buy homes. And it's kind of fun watching things grow a little bit and building up that reputation and building relationships with people that I trust. So.
Perfect. And Steve, you've used Charlie a ton over the past couple of...
So I met Charlie, I want to say last year, maybe a little bit longer. His services are exceptional. I've never had an inspector that does a Zoom call the next day with a client to go over the report. I've used great inspectors in the past. I mean, everyone has their niche, but I thought it was pretty cool how he does that. So I've been using him a little bit. And I just think the way that they're very thorough and the everything that they offer, including, pool inspections, is huge. So, a great advocate and really great person for our clients. So I'm a huge fan of Charlie, for sure.
Thank you. My head's going to grow, so
Yeah.
not too much. We need to stop that right now.
Yeah, it's a belated birthday gift.
There it is. Explodo head for building up the ego way too much.
Yeah, and what is your favorite part about the home inspection business?
For me, it's the look in the client's eyes when you finish the home inspection. I've done some pretty cool things in my life that other people can't say that they've ever done. In my own hands, I delivered 5 babies. All right, in that 37 years as a paramedic and a fireman. Pretty cool stuff. I put a needle in a person's heart. All right, I decompressed a chest, for somebody, and I'm sad to say they both died, but those were last-ditch efforts to try and save their life. And we pull people out of buildings, dead and alive, which is just remarkably rewarding, and those will live with me forever. And it sounds corny, but honestly, when we finish our home inspections and I finish talking to the clients, and after they shake your hand and they look you in the eye and they just say thank you, even when they're talking about our team, and Steve mentioned about those Zoom calls, I never realized how important that was. All right, but in real estate, anybody who gets this business, you have to build a relationship of trust with another human being, all right, that you're going to be there to give them accurate information. And as long as you understand that, everything goes well. Well, when we do our home inspections, we take our picture, we put our thoughts down on paper, and so we sent our message. But that message isn't always received the same way our inspectors meant it to be said. So now when I start following up with our clients, and hearing what they heard the inspector said, I'm like, oh, no. We need to get this understood. Yeah, it's serious. Yes, it could be dangerous, but we're talking about a $25 repair. And I can't build up somebody's emotion on something, even if it's dangerous. If it can be mitigated for $25 or $50, then let's do it. Make the problem go away and let somebody live in a home that makes them happy. But it's the thank you.
Yeah, and you do like these Zoom calls, and I don't know if you've been a part of any of these Zoom calls or kind of go through the whole process, but what is that process like from start to finish on your Zoom calls, where you go through the reports, and obviously you're here to educate them on What's something that's super easy as just an outlet fix to something where it's potential termite damage or a bigger area of concern? What's that process like?
So first they have to make an appointment. It's an hour and a half long Zoom call that we set up on there. I can always extend it if we need to, but we plan for an hour and a half. The first question I like to ask is, how do you feel about the house now that you went through a process like this? It gives me a gauge as to, okay, I want out of this. This is scaring me. This is just fine. It's what I expected. There's less things, whatever it is. It gives me a gauge of how they feel about the house. After that, I want to find out what their top 2-3 items that are making them upset, about buying a home. And let's just get some clarification on that stuff. And everything boils down to a few things, right? Number one is, what are the ramifications? I mean, how bad can somebody get hurt, or can the property get damaged if I do nothing? All right. Number two is going to be, what is the risk? Like we could sit there and say that a GFI outlet can kill somebody, and that's true, but it also takes a whole bunch of planets and alignment stuff to happen as well for us to need that GFI, and if it's not there for that to happen. So the risk of something going wrong is low. And then it comes down to the money. I don't want to sound greedy, but how much is it going to cost and who's going to pay? Mm-hmm. All right. So we use HomeWise and a few other cost estimating softwares so we could run these through there. And then some things are kind of just set in stone. Like we know a new furnace is going to be about $4,000. Air conditioner, same thing. GFI is $25. Some of those are givens. Mm-hmm. But, when we're dealing with roofs, also finding other alternatives. We just recently had a bad roof where we recognized that there was hail damage on there. All right. So, we could just sit there and say, yeah, your roof is damaged and it's old and you're going to have to get a new roof put in. Or we can go ahead and give them some solutions. But we notice hail damage. Let us put you in contact with our roofer, Brent. And Brent's going to come out there and be able to tell you whether or not this is covered by insurance. And if we can go ahead and put a claim on the insurance of the existing roof, well, now we just made two people happy. Mm-hmm. The sellers are happy. And in fact, it's more than that. The buyers are happy. It's not fraud in any which way. This is what we pay that insurance company for. So I went off on a tangent. I'm sorry. Sometimes I get a little passionate about doing all this stuff. But that's the main thing, is to find some other solutions, find out how much it's going to cost, see what they understand or what they heard, and bring clarity to stuff. Mm-hmm. And usually when we finish, they're going to be more comfortable with the decision they make. Whether the decision is to move forward, and most of the time the decision is to move forward, or to back out, mm-hmm. But either way, they're going to feel confident in their decision. And that's my goal. Yeah. Not to make the decision for them, but give them as much accurate information as possible so they can make an intelligent decision. And it works. Yeah. I really didn't think it would work.
Yeah, no,
but it does.
Yeah, I think the Zoom call is unbelievable in just terms of the customer service, right? Yeah. I mean, I've worked with a ton of first-time home buyers, and they call me right after the inspection report, and they get a 32-page inspection report, and they're like, all the outlets need to, they need to be replaced. Like, we need to cancel the deal. Like this is the worst home ever. I'm like, if our biggest concern is the outlets, right, I think we're okay. Right. But yeah, so I mean, been in the inspection business a long time. Yeah. Do you have a favorite, kind of like specialty inspection, like a chimney, a sewer? Steve mentioned a pool. Or are you just like bread and butter doing the homes, going into a new home every single time is like super fun?
No, there's, learning about the different schools. You brought up the pool inspection. One of the tools that we purchased is called a leakalizer. I mean, I'm sorry, it's a dorky name.
That's an original name right there. Leakalizer.
Leakalizer. Yeah. From a company made these things out in Florida. But I got to say, it's actually really cool, because we type in the square footage of the pool. It calculates the temperature that's happening in the area. It's able to know exactly what the evaporation rate is of that pool. And it's going to calculate per gallons per day on this temperature and everything else. But what's more important is once we get all the water flowing through all the underground plumbing, it's going to tell us if there's any leaks inside the plumbing. We won't be able to see those, right? And it tells us exactly how many gallons, that's happening. We just did one the other day, and then it ended up raining on us, so it skewed everything. But you could just see how the line is dropping because it does all this in less than a half hour. And it shows where everything is there's an actual leak in the pool. And then all of a sudden it rains, and then the level goes back up again. Mm-hmm. So that's cool. The chimney scans, we enjoy that. Nobody else. We made our own tools. Right now most of the chimney sweeps, they're going to use a front-facing camera on there, and they just want to look for one defect. And that's enough for them to go ahead and say, you're going to need a $6,000 chimney liner in this thing. That's expensive, mm-hmm. right? So what we did was we created our own push rod, lighted up push rod pole. We put a 360-degree camera on that stays centered in the flue. So now we can stop the video, spin it around, look up, look down. We got every square inch of that thing videotaped. And it's our goal to say that everything's okay. All right, that's what we want to do. But if it's not okay, I want to make sure that we find where those issues are, mm-hmm. and be able to prove indisputably that there's an actual problem there. Yeah. We don't want to just, my name is Charlie and I said your chimney's bad, so get a new chimney. That doesn't cut it.
Yeah.
We want to be able to prove everything with the equipment so that there isn't any he said, she said, yeah. when it comes into these things. So,
yeah. And maybe a question for both of you guys. Since we're coming up on summer, everyone's going to get their pools ready. What are, for prospective home buyers or sellers that want to get their pool ready for their sale, or for a prospective buyer that's looking to purchase a home with a pool, what are some tips and tricks to look for when on a showing or beforehand? Or
I mean, for me, I would say the one thing is to, as the homeowner, is to see if you can tell if there's any leaks. Check the motor, make sure the motor is working, make sure that if you have a cover, make sure the cover is working properly. As far as redoing the liner of the pool and so on, that is not inexpensive. And more importantly is, when it's concrete or whatever the material of the pool would be, I think making sure that there's no leaks is important. And if there is, find out how much it is to fix it, either offer a credit or get it fixed before selling it, or letting them know, hey, we've got this, it's going to be fixed in the next couple of weeks by ABC company type thing. I think that's crucial for sellers. I've also, had clients that were buying properties and they were pools, and they said, oh yeah, the pools are fine, this, that, whatever. Well, we're just agents, so we don't really know. And then we hire someone that is a pool inspector, and they come in, they say, well, we have all these damage, so on, whatnot. That's not going to do any good. So, just like anything within the house, if it's a pool, don't hide it. Just say, hey, we have this issue or whatever, because the fact is that it needs to be addressed one way or another, and allow the new buyer to decide if they're going to buy it or not. Yeah. I understand that a seller wants to get out of it, especially if they're like, all right, we're done, we're moving now. But at the same time, you try to hide it, and there's actually qualified people out there, such as Charlie's company, that come in and they use the legalizer.
Yeah, you like that?
And it's a great name. And, they use certain tools and certain software or whatnot to figure out if there's any damage or whatnot at the pool. And then you could have an issue on your hand trying to sell your house. So from a buyer's perspective, make sure you're a realtor, as well as they have someone they can use that can check the pool out thoroughly, because it's a very important aspect when you're buying a house, if there is a pool. And the second thing, as far as the seller goes, make sure that you have it inspected, or make sure that you check on the aspects in regards to making sure there's no leaks and making sure there's no issues. And if there is, make sure you address them, or at least disclose them, so that a new buyer can make the decision, and you can get the most amount of money for your house.
It's funny how you said that. It's I just did a house in Long Grove, and I did the pool inspection for the people that bought the house, and then they moved out a year later, and the new people that bought it. And I didn't recognize the house when I was right there, but once I got to the pool, and I'm like, this pool, the slide or the waterfall feature had a bad leak in it, right? So it's expensive to dig things up and fix those things, and they just chose not to fix it. And that's fine. I asked him if he ever got it fixed. He goes, no, we just don't turn the waterfall feature on unless we're having a lot of guests or a party outside. And then we know that we're going to have to add water. And that's fine. It's your home. You can live any way you want to, but my goal is to let the clients know what it is. And he was happy. He chose to live with it, and everything's fine.
What are some of the most common things that pop up on a pool inspection?
Fencing.
And estimated cost as well, maybe.
It's hard to say. Most of the time it's fencing. Just about every house I find that on. The gates don't close and latch on their own. The handles aren't in the right spot. A lot of people get annoyed by the alarms that you're supposed to have on doors, so that if somebody opens and goes out to the pool area, there's just like a big loud buzz. So they have those disconnected. Whenever on the rooftops in the city, I've been finding that people aren't getting permits with those, and because of which they're not doing what's called equal potential bonding of all the equipment that's nearby. And I know it's a big fancy word, but what it means is that anything that's metal that's within 5 feet of the edge of the pool and within 12 feet above the pool, they all have to be connected electronically together so that the voltage is the same between two objects. So if somebody touches those two objects, they don't become the conductor to equalize them. In other words, they don't get a shock when that comes out of there. So we test for all that stuff, and quite often we find it just wasn't done, and it's too close to the perimeter. But the leaking, I try to warn my clients whenever we find a leak, and I want to say maybe about a half to 2/3 of the homes that we do are going to have some sort of a leak in there. And that's why I like this machine, is because it tells us exactly how much it's leaking, so that somebody knows how much water they're going to have to add to the pool, or how often they're going to have to pray for rain, pennies from heaven. Yeah. So that comes up that way.
And then, is there more things for buyers out there that are looking to purchase during the summertime? Is there more common things that come up on an inspection during the summertime rather than the wintertime? Should they be looking for something? Obviously, the AC is going to be going, more often during the summertime than the wintertime.
Yeah.
Is there anything during the seasons that would change an inspection?
Well, yeah, there's limitations. So air conditioning is a good one. We've had people where they had leaks in their air conditioning systems. So right before we get there, they get them all charged up, but they don't fix the leak. That's a tough one, So we look for the frost on or oil leaks that are coming to show that we're leaking refrigerant that's going to be visible. I think the hardest thing is going to be water leaks and missing insulation. So once we get an equal temperature inside and out, we don't have any temperature differences. It gets real hard with the thermal imagers to find out if we have any drafts or missing spots. The hotter it is or the colder it is outside, that shows up quite a bit. I know we have a limitation with air conditioners. Most of them, and every manufacturer is different. Most manufacturers are usually around 45, 50 degrees, but most home inspectors, and what that means is they're not supposed to be run when it's below that temperature, and the reason is because you'll have the refrigerant in a liquid state, and if you try to run that through the compressor, well, you can have a perfectly good air conditioner and you just ruin the compressor by trying to turn it on. So I think there was one that was around 60 degrees. They didn't want it running below that. So it seems like most home inspectors are going to use 65 as their magic number. But these are all getting more and more powerful. I mean, we have now Mitsubishi mini splits out there that are going to operate at negative 25 degrees, and bring heat into the house.
I've got one that's negative 14.
Negative 14.
Negative 14. We got about 5 years ago, and
it's amazing.
Yeah, it works like a champ.
Yeah.
Cool and hot air. I mean, you can get the ones that are just that just have heat, and you can get the ones that are just cold or both.
Air conditioning is just cold.
Yeah. So
A heat pump
either or.
is air conditioning and heat, and the only difference is what's called a reversing valve. So instead of absorbing heat inside the house and pumping it outside, you're absorbing heat outside the house and pumping it inside. So it just switches which way the refrigerant runs.
Now, do you use the leakalizer to see if that leaks? No. Okay.
No. So
I just wondered if it was a universal tool or not.
no.
It's pretty awesome.
But there is something that you can do, if you go out there to, it's for real estate agents. It's a real simple thing. You can look at the data plate and determine how old this is. In our area, in the Chicagoland area, we're about 15, 20 years is an average lifespan of an air conditioning system. You go down to Florida, and it's like 7 years.
Yeah, I could see why.
Because it's so hot and it gets
runs
used
all
so
the time.
much.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
But if you look where the refrigerant lines come into the compressor cabinet outside and you start seeing frost out there, that's a huge clue that you're low on refrigerant, which means you probably have a leak in there. And then you want to look and see what kind of refrigerant it is. Because if it's an older unit that's an R22, they don't make that anymore. And the only way to get that refrigerant is pretty much on the black market, and you're looking at $400 a pound for that. Most of these AC units are taking 5 pounds or more. That's $2,000 just in refrigerant costs, let alone labor to fix the leak. And
Might as well just get a new one.
might as well get a new one.
No doubt.
Absolutely. And Puron, right now, that's $4 a pound. So $400 to $4. It's amazing on the difference in the price. So yeah, look for the leaks. Those are things that are pretty quick and easy to see.
You bring up something really important there when you mentioned the $4 versus $400. Sellers out there, buyers out there that are going to put or be installing a new AC unit or deciding whether or not to keep their old one. The fact is that oldie but goodie, sure, there are those ones out there that are still working.
Yeah.
But the chances of them crapping out and then you having to get a new one anyway, it might be something you want to invest in, because making that investment actually when you're selling your house, they'll be more happy to buy that, realizing that that is a brand new feature versus something that's older that could crap out at any time. So advice to sellers or even buyers, like if you have the opportunity to buy a new one, yeah, I know it's an investment and I know it's expensive, and it should be taken in consideration when you're buying or you're selling your home to reflect the price. However, it's something that I have told sellers now, or even buyers, like this, you're buying your most important and your most expensive asset you've ever bought, right? Or you are selling your most expensive asset, so on. That extra $3,000, $4,000 for a new compressor may actually get you another 8 to 10 in your house. It's amazing how it all works. Oh yeah, 100%. Because think about it. If you're a new home buyer and you go to buy a house and that property is $300,000, let's say, and you don't have a new compressor, all you're thinking of is money, 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 money. So if that property is $299, right? And you're like, oh, I'm going to have to replace the compressor, and the compressor is $3,500 or $4,000 or whatever type of compressor you're getting, depending on what it is. You're like, oh, wait, well, I only want to pay $295 because of that, or $296. Where in this market, that's not the way you play this game. Like, most likely there's going to be multiple offers. If there's not multiple offers and you're lucky, that's fine, but that needs to reflect that. So if it's a brand new compressor, then I'm telling my clients, you'd be more inclined to buying this property at full price, knowing that that's brand new. You don't even have to worry about it for 20 years, right?
That makes a lot of sense.
So you're going to get that extra money, and you're going to be able, when you buy that property, you're going to know that that's done. You don't have to worry about that for 15, 20 years.
Now, when I talk to the clients, it's I'm saying almost just the opposite.
What are you saying?
I'm saying, hey, listen, this thing's 25 years old. It's working. We got temperature drops coming out of here. don't do a thing.
Oh, no,
Let it
100%.
run as much as you
100%.
can.
And
But
that's,
you're talking about the sellers.
No, both.
Oh.
I mean, once the buyer buys it, I would just say, listen, you're going to put a new one in anyway. So you might as well, get the property, and then maybe we do a home warranty. Maybe you just, run it until it's done. Fine. We can ask for money. They're probably not going to give us any money, but this is what it is. You have to be okay with it. From the seller's point of view, it's telling the sellers, like, listen, we can leave it in here. It's working fine, so on. But if I can get an extra 10 and you're only spending 5, then I think that might be worth it.
Very much so.
So I just did that on one of the properties I'll be selling out in Wheaton. And I put a brand new AC and furnace system in there and a few other things. And well, yes, myself in particular. No, actually, my HVAC guy did it for me. He's phenomenal. So, and he gave my clients a great deal, and I know I was able to jack up the price a little bit because of it. So, that is something that I advise them to do, because if I'm selling this home and it's a starter home for someone and everything is brand new in it for the most part, then why are you not going to pay it more of a top dollar versus something that's older? Mm-hmm. Because again, a new home buyer, especially a first-time home buyer, they worry about a loose toilet, a GFI outlet, let alone a massive, undertaking of a compressor, Mm-hmm. So my advice always is, when I sell them, is that we can leave them the way it is. It's fine. If you want to replace it, I can probably get you an extra couple grand than what you paid for it. That's usually the case. It's not always the case, but it's usually the case. So I think it's all about knowing the markets. I think it's all about knowing how to price the property in general. In this type of market, as we know, is that you don't want to price it over. You don't want to price it way too under. You want to price it right at that sweet spot where hopefully you're getting multiple offers, and it's going to push that price up anyway. So that's the idea behind all of it, right? Mm-hmm. So
that makes a lot of sense. I like all that.
And feel free to tell your clients that you're referring to me about that as well, because that makes a huge difference. It does. And I think I even had the conversation with the client that you referred me to, and they were a lot happier understanding that and knowing those options versus someone who's going into it blind and being like, well, I hope this doesn't happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and you were talking about, we've kind of discussed about first-time home buyers. What do you preface, kind of going into an inspection for a first-time home buyer, and like, what do you have a pre-consultation before the inspection, or what would you give, advice to a first-time home buyer that's out there to be aware of the inspection report, because it is like a 32-page, inspection.
If you're lucky, sometimes it's 75 pages.
Yeah,
I think the more information,
it's very overwhelming. So
I think the more information, the more colorful photos, the more description, the more everything. Yeah, you have to read a lot more. But I'm telling you what, if I'm buying a house and it's the largest asset I've ever bought, I want that large, whatever. But that's also where we come into play as the realtor of like, listen, I know this looks intimidating. So you asked what I would tell my clients. Listen, as we're, finish this part, it looks intimidating, but the reason it's intimidating, and the reason that it's a larger or a longer report, is because they are very, very thorough. And that's where it comes to Charlie and his company, is that they're very, very thorough. So you're going to have, lots to look over, but you assure them, listen, I've got you. We're going to go over it after you look at it. Then we're going to go over those things. I always advise my clients that they're going to find a bunch of things. Doesn't matter. A new construction property, they could find things. It doesn't matter.
We do.
So yeah, absolutely. I mean, the inspectors have a lovely time with blue tape. I've found that, especially with the new construction, and in the basement. Well, in my past, right? And that's because of nail pops and things like that. Yeah. But the point I'm trying to make is that when I work with a client, I say, listen, we're going to have an inspection. They're very thorough. I tell them all about it, right? And then what I tell them is, we're going to find a lot of little things. I want you to really focus on the big things. Little things are little things. It's not a big deal, but the big things. So such as, and I've already preempted them as far as the questions they're going to ask when they're looking at a property in an open house, or when we're actually looking at a property together. How old are these? What's the condition of this, right? So those, and I will tell them, listen, in this type of market, you don't want to play the game too much. But of course, if there are major things and they can't be addressed or they have to be addressed and they're not being addressed, then maybe we're having a different conversation of either moving forward with this property or not. The fact is that I'm also a big proponent of, if you found one perfect property, you'll find another. It's just patience. This is a marathon, not a sprint when you're looking for property. I don't know if a lot of people appreciate that or not, but I think it's very important to let people know that, because I don't want them to feel like they're in a rush. They should not feel like they're in a rush. They're making one of the largest investments of their life. So that's what I say when I go to the inspection aspect to it. And then I let them know, like, these are the steps. And then we'll have a conversation after we get the report. The report usually takes about 24 hours. Sometimes it's by the end of the day. It depends on how quick we can get it and how busy the inspector is. So, and then we go over it, we figure it out, and then we go from there. I think the biggest thing about people think home inspectors are going to destroy the property. They don't. They just are very thorough. They let you know these are the things to be aware of. If you want to move forward, this is what it would be. If you don't, that's okay. But my job is to educate you and make sure that you, as a new owner, a new buyer, are fully aware of anything and everything that they're going to run into, or at least 98% of it. The stuff that he can't do is like, I can't see through walls. I can't see if that's PVC versus copper, things like that through a wall. But there's also tools that they use too. So that's what I would say in regards to when I work with a new homeowner.
It's I listen. I wish more real estate agents had that attitude. It's
I appreciate that.
No, and I'm serious. It all goes down to expectations. So when I was in the fire service, one of my old fire chiefs, they put slogans on the fire rigs and whatever it is, and ours was consistently exceeding customer expectations. And at first I'm like, all they want is their lives saved. That's all we have to do. How are we going to exceed that? And I kind of made fun of it, for a little while until I started, what is it that somebody who's buying a house really wants? And you hit it on the head. They want to be able to make their own decisions. They want to be able to make good decisions. They need to be educated when it comes to stuff, but also they need to be forewarned on some of the things that are going to happen. And if you can go ahead and set those expectations in advance, as you were saying, and I don't know, maybe you two can tell me this. Do real estate agents go in there and loosen up every bolt on every toilet?
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's part of the listing thing.
We want to make sure you're working.
Okay, got it. It's like we run
we'll
into
be like, hey,
loose
we did
toilets
that
everywhere.
to test them, and they failed.
Nice.
So
I love it. So let me tighten it up and we're good to go
that's
again.
right.
But, it's
Gotta
stuff
keep you busy.
Gotta keep you busy. But it's stuff like that, though, that it's like these are all small items that can be fixed. I get it. If you don't fix it, it could create a bigger problem, that comes in there. Or if you're buying a 100-year-old house, we're going to find water stains. That house has leaked one time or another. That doesn't mean that it's a problem or, all of a sudden something got wet and we're going to get mold, growing on there. That's not the case. And I think getting as much of that education in advance and prepping people, the sad thing is, a little bit of Charlie complaining about our society here, is that, it seems like if somebody says something that you don't like, it's a normal response. It seems like that you need to discredit that person. And, maybe, and sometimes that manipulates people. And that's the one thing I never want to do, is try and manipulate somebody. I'm not going to say that this home inspector is a nitpicker or this and everything else. I want to make a long list. I want my clients to be aware of it. But yet I don't want to intimidate them and frighten them in any which way. And that's what I saw that was happening, is that they understood an issue as being this, when in all reality it's this. But if we take those few extra moments and we put it into proper perspective, everybody seems to be relaxed. And if I could show them on the screen, running it through the cost estimating software, that just makes everybody at ease. Knowing what you're getting into, I think, is the most important thing, and that doesn't come overnight. It doesn't come because somebody sat through a 60-hour class in a home inspection thing, and it takes years and takes mentorship, and it takes somebody else working with you. And even when it's funny now, when I hire home inspectors and I look for them, I don't want anybody with any experience. Is that stupid?
No, I don't think it is, because I think it does make a lot of sense to me, because then you can mold them, or at least teach the things they didn't know. Now they know. When they think they know it, then they're going to try to challenge you for the most part, right? So I could see, or they may have a difference of opinion, like, oh, this crazy guy, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Yeah. Even though you've been in business for 35, 40 years, whatever.
People do say that about me.
So, yeah, I mean, well, but I think everyone's going to have an opinion. They're like, they're
like butts.
They're like
everybody
butts.
has
Everyone's
one
got
and they
one.
stink.
There you go. So the fact is like, of course they're gonna. Everyone has opinions. Everyone has opinions. If they're better than you, or they have better thoughts than you do, or maybe you're wrong, they're right. I mean, who cares?
I'll tell you the secret to this is one word. It's passion.
Yeah.
If you have the passion to help another human being, it truly helps somebody help another human being. I mean, Maslow's hierarchy of needs: food, water, shelter.
Shelter. Yep.
Housing is shelter.
Yep.
All right. So this is one of our basic needs that we have, is buying a home. If you truly believe that you want to help another human being do that, that's all that really matters. You got to want to do the work. And I can't teach that. So whenever I go through our home inspection training programs and we bring new people in there, if I see somebody helping another person who's struggling, I'm going to focus on that person. That's who I want to recruit. The technical stuff, I could teach that. But you can't teach a person to care about another person. You know that.
No, of course.
So is that the main thing that differentiates a good home inspector to a bad home inspector?
If you're asking me,
yeah. Passion?
It's passion, knowledge, experience really does come in a long way. But you can't always start with all the experience. And that's where it's nice having a team. It's kind of like with you guys here. You have a few very successful real estate brokers that really understand the business and understand the importance of building relationships. And then it's their job is to recruit other like-minded people and make sure that we get that same passion and same knowledge and experience that stretches out. But yet you're still there in case you need to make that phone call. You still have somebody that you can trust and rely on. Even though I'm sure you want everybody working on their own, but
I think it's interesting you bring that up, because I think some people should work on their own, but I think they should be taught. I think they should shadow. I think they should really learn everything before they end up going on their own.
Yeah.
Right. So whatever profession that is, and I would add to your, the three things you just mentioned, but I would also say systems. I think systems makes a huge difference as well.
Yeah.
Because that allows you to stay organized, stay professional, make sure you have the right tools for the job. Tools don't necessarily have to be, objects. It could be just the fact of the tools of the education and
an email.
And anything that makes you, you asked a question of differentiation aspect. There are 1,000 realtors in Evanston, right? There's 1,000 inspectors in Chicago. There's whatever. The fact is like, what makes you different? That's one of Charlie's first questions he asked me way back when. What makes you separate from another realtor?
Which is kind of funny. Normally, real estate agents are going to be interviewing the home inspector, and here I am trying to interview the real estate agent. It's like, I don't know if you're worthy to refer me.
And I loved it. It was fantastic. I'm like, I'm all over this.
I don't want to work with somebody that doesn't care about another human being. I don't want to. I had that before.
Yeah.
I actually had a real estate agent who there was a sloped down driveway. Water was coming into the garage constantly. And he just
This is going to be good.
rebuked everything that we said, and he kept referring business to us for a long time until I asked him not to after this client. And
Wow.
it's a big deal to me.
Yeah.
So water was coming in there. The lady ended up, she wasn't mad at us because we told her about all this stuff. But she goes, well, he said that there's a guy that'll fix this, for next to nothing. He said, this isn't a big deal, but we got water coming into our basement through the garage on this stuff. And then I'm like, why did you do that? Why did, I called him up on it.
So attached garage, in other words.
It was an attached garage, below grade, driveway flowed in there. Everything was flooded, and it was the same
so like
level as the
decline one?
basement. Yeah.
Oh, dear Lord. Go ahead.
Which is fine. My in-laws have that as well. And as long as we keep the drains clear and we have a backup, we're fine.
Right.
But he told her that, that's, a minor thing you shouldn't worry about. And there were like 10 other things. And so I called him up and I'm like, why did you say that? That's absolutely not true. Why would you go against me like that? And he goes, I showed her 15 houses and I was tired of showing her houses. His exact words. And she was going to buy this house. That was all there was to it. And I'm sitting there that people like that do exist, and you were throwing out numbers before, but there's 75,000 licensed real estate brokers in the state of Illinois. And 80% of our population is here in the Chicagoland area. That's 85% of them. There's 1,700 licensed home inspectors in the state of Illinois. And again, 80% of them are here in the Chicagoland area.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I'm a nerd when it comes to those numbers.
No, that's good to know because, with Alex and I, we probably can't even keep straight how many agents there are or not. 2020, when COVID happened, everything else, it went down from, by about 40%. So went from like 1.2 to like, I think it was like 600,000. Let's just go with that number. That's half. That didn't make sense. But anyway, so let's say it's 600. And then after 2021, 2022, we're up to like 1.6 million in this, in the country. And they still have that. But as the NAR settlement has reached, as everything is being done, as people are seeing, the average realtor last year, what was it, 1 deal or 2 deals?
Yeah, it was like
I don't know how you can
it was
sustain
less
that
than
in a living, and then on top of that, so like as far as how many people they're going to vary, but it's the good ones that count. And you want to know one of the reasons that Charlie is separate from other people is he has the quality, the morals to say no to someone, to say, I don't want to work with you anymore, even though they're building his business. He needs to build his business. But guess what? This man has 1,700, 5-star reviews. I've never seen that before in my life.
We're past 1,800.
That's insane. That's incredible to me. So, seriously, that's fantastic. That is quite the accomplishment.
And they're books. People are writing big, long letters of passion, which means that we made an impression on them. But most importantly, it's just like, the real job of a real estate agent is to build that trust with their client. And once you have that trust, then it lasts forever until you break it. Then it goes by real quick. I try to do the same thing. All right. I just want to build that level of trust with our clients. And that's where that whole Zoom comes in there.
So have you ever had a review that's less than 5 stars that you just didn't post?
Yeah, we have 2 4-star reviews, and both of them were on me.
4.
All right, 4 stars.
Out of 5.
Well, we got 1 3-star and 1 1-star.
Okay.
All right.
In how many years?
On 30.
Okay, exactly.
32, 31 years.
Go ahead.
But I wasn't really worried about reviews. I never realized how important they were.
Yeah, I was the same way.
Up until about the last 5 years.
Right, yeah.
So those 1,800 came in 5 years.
Yeah.
Which that I'm even more proud of than the amount of years that I've been in this business. It's just figuring out what is our real job. And you mentioned it, educator, you were saying it as well. That's our job, is a consultant, basically, is to give somebody the information so they make the decision, not to make the decision for other people. And that's when I start seeing that in a real estate agent, I want to distance myself. I don't want to be near them. I don't need those headaches. And it's amazing when you find out that 80%, and how we maintain these numbers, I don't know. But in home inspection business and real estate agent business, 80% of those that get a license do not renew their license after that 2-year period. And they're gone. And it's just so many people come and go and come and go. And you wonder why, there's that stigma or that bad reputation that exists out there. It's not for the people that are here for the long run. Those are the quality people. It's the ones that came and went, tarnished a reputation for those that take this job seriously. And sorry, I get off on my
No, I think that's important.
Right.
I mean, I have a question for you, Alex. I mean, I know you're kind of running this show, but I'm curious, what do you think? You've been in the business for what, 3 years now? What's your
coming
opinion?
up on year 2?
Only 2. Wow.
July 4th.
Well, yeah, because technically you
I
were an
interned for
a while.
half a year.
Half a year, excuse me. I'm sorry. So 2.5 years in the industry,
Yeah.
technically, right? What's your opinion as far as like the differences and the things that you've seen as far as how you feel this, how everything has been going, what you're anticipating, and kind of what's crucial to you, especially in you're a little bit more spry than both of us. So, what's your opinion as far as like this day and age and stuff like that? I'm curious.
Yeah, well, I think I have a unique perspective in terms of like I've been through osmosis. I've been in the real estate industry since I've been born, from my grandma and my mom and uncles and all of that.
Third generation, is that correct?
Yeah, third generation. So I think I've seen it done the right way, and I know that you don't have to quote unquote you got to hustle for your job, but you don't have to be like that slimy hustler, right? Where you talked about, where it's like I've shown someone 15 properties and I'm just going to force them gun to your head. And I use that analogy all the time.
You were both insulted by that.
Yeah, I mean,
100%.
I use that analogy all the time when I'm talking to a client, where it's like, if I'm like, listen, I'm here to be your advisor. I'm not coming in with a shotgun or a gun to like force you to buy this home. If at the end of the day you're the one that's going to be making the monthly payments on the home, if you don't want to move forward, no problem. We are in such a buyer friendly state in the state of Illinois. Let's use that to our advantage. Like we'll get a great inspector in, we'll go through the entire thing. If for whatever reason we can't come to an agreement in terms of a credit or home warranty, and you still feel uncomfortable and we can't get a deal done, let's walk away. No worries. We send a cancellation letter, you get your earnest money back, and we'll go right back to it. You said I'm spry. Listen, all I got right now is real estate. I will be there at 7 a.m. to do the showing. If you want to do it at 7 p.m. I don't have a kid to take to school. I don't have a kid to take to practice. I don't have to go to any recitals. My schedule is open for real estate.
Must be nice, isn't it?
Sorry.
So yeah. So
I'm not going to be as nice. 80 it's 8 to 5, and that's
I used to do 80 to 90 hours a week of real estate.
Yeah, but that's the hustle. Like I got to build the business, and so I'm typically always available. I'm available for a call if you need a call. So I mean, I think those horror stories that you talked about, and I kind of want to get into before we end this, one of your inspection horror stories, because I think that that's the greatest part of our job. I think is once you're past it and you're like removed from it, you can find a sense of humor to it, a sense of of learning. I mean, all of my family's Thanksgivings, all my family's Christmases. I mean, all it is just horror stories, where we're chuckling. It's like, why are we in this industry in the first place? It's like, why are we doing this to ourselves?
How many clients always look at you and go, I don't know how you do this business.
I know. They're like,
yeah,
or they're just like, like, and I'm like, this is my job.
Yeah.
So I work with a flipper. He's got something like 150 doors, mostly down on the south side. And he ends up, we use his homes to train other home inspectors. And I got to say that as much as I liked him as a person, I'm not too happy with the work that's being done. And I'm very prejudiced when it comes to flippers, especially if they're doing a bad job. So answer your question. They cut open a square around the main water line that was coming in. It was a lead service line that came in there. and they exposed it down to the gravel underneath the concrete. They cut the lead water line, and then they tapped in a copper pipe and brought the copper and filled it all back up in around concrete. So it looks like you have a copper water feed. When in all reality, you got 4 inches of copper water line and you got a lead line going all the way out to the street. Stuff like that, I think, is misleading. All right. Now,
Extremely.
maybe it was ignorance. I want to give them a little bit of benefit of the doubt. All right. Maybe somebody just said, well, let's just bring it up there. But I really am.
I have a difference of opinion about that.
I do too. You know,
Especially when you say flippers,
Right,
they're always
right.
cutting the corners.
They're- yeah.
I mean, the amount of times I've gone into,
Yeah.
a property where it's like, this home has been recently renovated, it's been flipped, it's been amazing,
Oh,
and
I
then
love those.
I pull a drawer and it hits like the stove, or they've installed,
the dishwasher doesn't
the
open.
light switches are like wrong. One of the biggest things that I always tell buyers when we're going into a new construction or a flip is look at the light switches. So many times, like the light switches are not flush.
Okay.
And that just gives me, if you're not able to do that minute detail where you're always, it's one of the biggest things that you're always going to be touching, like in your home. You're always going to be touching the light switch. And so if you can't get it flush as, a flipper or, building a new home, what else are they, cutting the corners on? Not saying that they're, cutting all the corners, but that is such a main thing. Like I've seen it like tilted. I've seen it not, totally, situated. I mean, it is.
Electric is a good one.
That one, and I love it. I kind of want to jump off of that. I've seen the ones like that, right? Like if it's not flush to the wall, I get it. That's because, okay, just undo it, screw it back in, make it flush, and it's all good. But I love the crooked ones, and I love the ones that stick out from the wall, and then they put caulk around it.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Because just from an inspector point of view, can you tell me how wrong that is, please?
It's
You don't put caulk around a light switch.
no, they're
Or the faceplate, I should say.
And I get it; they're doing it for cosmetic reasons and such. But you hit the electricians and the plumbers are going to be your 2 most expensive trades. And when you're flipping a home, the whole idea is to make money. And there's 2 ways to make money: you either bring more income or you cut your overhead. One of the two. And usually they end up cutting their overhead, figuring that they can't raise the price of the house, depending on the neighborhood. So one of the, as a real estate agent, I gave you some good clues if you want to recognize a flip. Starting on the outside, look at the service wires that are coming in where they splice together. If the wires are the same size, that's a good sign. If the Commonwealth or the electric company's wires are thin and all of a sudden your wires are thick, then they upgraded the electric and didn't pull a permit or didn't bring new lines in there. Look at the meter panel. There should be a wire on there that's tamper tag on there. Pull on it. All right. You're going to be surprised on how many times it was cut. And then they kind of stuff it right back in there. So it looks like that the tamper wire is there, but it's not there. Outlets around kitchens. There's a lot of few rules in here. So if you're going to be taking notes, now's the time to take notes. But you need to have an outlet within 2 feet of each side of the sink. They can be no more than 4 feet apart. If you have a countertop more than 12 inches or more, you have to have an outlet there. So these are all things that when somebody remodels a kitchen, they'll put different cabinet layouts in, they'll move stuff around, but they won't adjust the outlets because they don't want to pay for an electrician to come in there and they don't know the rules. So if you see that the outlets aren't laid out right for the countertop, that's another good clue that comes in there. For plumbing, if you want to watch for what happened with changing out that copper water line, you want to learn the difference between hard temper and soft temper plumbing. Soft temper means it's flexible. So a copper pipe that you could bend, is soft temper. Hard temper, if you try and bend it, it's going to kink on you. You just can't do it. So that's why we use fittings to make turns and such. So if that water line isn't curved, if it's straight as an arrow that comes out of there, that's not the water line that goes out to the street. Somebody cut it below grade and brought that up in there. There's no way physically possible to bring a water line with hard temper pipe underground and bend it up inside the house. It can't happen, So those are some good clues. And then another one is look at the roof outside. And if you see the plumbing stacks, they better line up with the bathrooms. If you don't have them lining up with those, or if you have a kitchen over here and there's nothing going up out of the roof, to vent out those water lines, somebody did something hokey. And we have to make sure that we let the bad gases out of the house. So those are going to be the stuff that you could see with the naked eye and no tools. And then I think that's a time that you need to put the old spidey senses on and get the guard up and start looking harder, for our clients, or at least set the expectations that, hey, there's going to be things that we can't see wrong in this house, but they're still going to be there. I'm never afraid of what I can see. I'm only afraid of what I can't see, what's hidden. So
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, Charlie, I think we're wrapping up on the hour that we got.
Yeah.
So we'll have to have you back on because this was incredibly insightful, and I'm sure we can continue talking for.
And you're my favorite real estate.
Oh, here it goes.
Thank you. There we go. I'll clip that and put it everywhere. So
As well you should.
I appreciate it, Charlie. Well, thank you. And we'll definitely have to have you back on. So I appreciate it.
Sounds like good. Thank you again. I appreciate being here.
There we go.
Thanks, Alex.